Okay, this is section D, or introduction to section D. So we've now covered section A, which is the research, section B, which is your specification, your design brief, section C, which is the generation of ideas, and then of those ideas there should be some testing to indicate which ideas have been either chosen by your client or which are the best ideas based on your specification list. So we're looking at about 4 or 5 sheets, and they're worth 20 marks for this section. So these are the aims. So we're looking to try and produce a comprehensive development section in your portfolio, section D, and we're just going to look at the assessment criteria for this particular part of the NEA. So there are 4 short sentences or paragraphs. So the first one, it says very detailed work is evident using a wide range of 2D stroke 3D techniques, including CAD where appropriate, in order to develop the prototype. So what this means is we need, over those 4 or 5 sheets, we need to see some evidence of all the things that you've developed over the duration of the course. So that could be isometric drawing, you could introduce some perspective drawing, you might have cutaways, or you might zoom in on particular sections of your drawings to try and help explain them. You've got 2D sketches, thick and thin line technique to try and enhance them. We've got shading or marker work, and then you've got your CAD applications, which will come later. So you might use 2D design tools, SolidWorks if you've got any three-dimensional objects, and then Photoshop and possibly Illustrator for your surface graphics in there. The next section, it says excellent modelling using a wide variety of methods to test your ideas, and they're fully meeting all the requirements. So the requirements are your specification list, so we need to make sure we're continuing to make sure you explain whether or not it meets your specification list. So in this part we can use different modelling techniques. So some of you may use card modelling, and this could be a range of different materials such as duplex board, solid white board, foam board, corrugated cardboard. If it's a 3-dimensional object, you might use styrofoam. We have had some students who've used plasticine modelling in the past, or it might get to a stage where you might 3D print something on the 3D printer. The next section says fully appropriate materials or components selected with extensive research into their working properties. So as you're developing, you might try different materials and test them to see whether or not they're suitable. So this is another form of research in there. So you need to make sure it's explicit that this is research in the development part. So it says here, try different types of materials. So sometimes some materials might be better suited to others. Make sure you photograph any evidence of testing. Document your findings in your annotations. Assess which is the best material to use based on its properties. So it could be something to do with its strength, it could be something to do with the ability to print onto it, or the quality, or whether or not you can actually fold and shape it. So as you're making your products, it's actually a good idea to make mistakes by trying different materials. And then the bottom section, it says fully detailed manufacturing specification is produced with comprehensive justification to inform the manufacturer. I'll go through this in a bit more detail closer to the time, but once you've developed your idea, you need to produce a manufacturing specification where somebody else could pick up your work and be able to make the item that you've designed. So in this case, it just says, obviously, produce the manufacturing spec. It's similar to your specification list, it's in bullet points, and also it should have all the details of, for instance, what type of printing, what type of materials, how big the components are going to be, in order for somebody else, they can look at it and they've got a really good idea of how to make your design. Okay, so the next aims and objectives are just to look at, again, to produce a comprehensive development section for section D, but look at some exemplar work. We've then got, so here we've got the development of a CD packaging. So we've got the acronym Scamper that we can use just at the top section over here, where you can either, if you're struggling to decide what you want to change, so you could use Scamper, which I'll go through in a bit more detail about substituting or combining materials. But you can see just probably scattered throughout the sketch or the sheet on here, we've got some 3D drawings, thick and thin line technique, and then it's within the design sheet, you've also got 2-dimensional work drawn in CAD. So you've got some CAD work in here, some screen grabs of CAD work, and then eventually we've got some evidence of modelling, physical modelling, where we've got photographs of these. They're all annotated, whether that's commenting on function, the use of CAD, or it might be, there's no real aesthetics on this one, but it might be that you've got some evidence of testing over here where you're asking your target audience or your client for their comments. So it could be through a questionnaire, or it could be based on your original specification list. Are you meeting that specification list? We haven't got any, we've got some dimensions here actually on the CAD, but nothing on the drawings. Next phase, so once you've designed your net, you then probably start on the surface graphics. So we're starting off with the image, the original image, and then we're trying to tell a story of how we've developed that image by changing the color, the contrast, applying the text on there, and eventually it kind of develops into trying to apply the other components of the net. So this one you can see we've got the net just about on the top here, and it's got all the information on there. So we're developing the surface graphics here, but again we're saying what we've done in CAD, what colours what we've done to the colours to change them. Does it make it a better design? What does the client think of this? So this is the second development phase. The next thing you've got is something to do with this merchandise. So this is for a point of sales display. So we've got the original idea here drawn up. We've got some calculations for what the net might look like, and the implementation of Scamper, which will come through. So we've got, for instance, Scamper eliminate. So from going from that one to this one, we've eliminated a side. You might use rotate, so it's flipped onto its side over here. You might have elongate, so you stretched out the side. So bit by bit, that design is changing and evolving. Again, we've got some evidence of photos, and we've got some evidence of CAD over here. We've got some evidence of the client's input within the designing. And then the last thing we've got here is development of the surface graphics. So we're taking that original chosen design, which has come from the other development, and then taking it on further. So over these stages, they're developing that. Again, we've got client involvement, what they've done in CAD, what information they've included and why. They're still using Scamper as well with this one. So with that in mind, that Scamper system, so if you're unsure about what to change, you can use Scamper. So we've got it in the top left hand corner as an example here. So this is a generic sheet, so we can break that acronym down into substitute, combine, alter, modify, put to other use, eliminate and reverse. The process is infinite, so you could change or modify and tweak your design over and over again. So there's some little pointers on the sheet to indicate what you could do to change your design. If there's a tip down at the bottom that it may or may not work. So sometimes if you change something, it might not make it a better design, but it's important that you comment on that as to what you've changed, and then what do you need to do to try and improve on that design. So, on the next video, we're just going to look at techniques we can